Yo guys, it's Kim, and I know I've been off for about 2 weeks, but there's a good reason for that. I went to Europe for about 10 days, attended my friend's wedding, but more importantly for this video, I took my Lumix G7 with me. Now, like most of you, I bought the G7 because of its video prowess, but I have never really paid too much attention to its stills capability until now. So for this trip, I just decided to not take any video and just enjoy myself, but I did bring my G7 with me just for casual photography. I brought 3 lenses with me. I brought the kit lens, I brought the 20mm, and I brought the 42.5 1.7, but mostly I was just thinking of shooting with the 20 and the 42.5. So lots of people are gonna do much better scientific tests than I am, so I'm just gonna review this camera from a stills perspective, from the perspective of a traveler slash tourist, what it's like to basically take this camera on a trip. And hopefully that's gonna give you some insight on how this camera performs in terms of taking it on a trip, or maybe even just for casual photography. So in terms of handling, usability, and weight, this camera is obviously mirrorless. It's always been light because of its plastic body. And if you've got some small lenses, which most of the micro four thirds lenses are, it's gonna be a pretty light package to take around with you all day. In my bag, I always had the camera, I had the 20, and I had the 42.5. It was a really light package to carry out all day. I never had any problems with it. Now, in terms of the usability and handling of the camera, I've never really had any problems with that. The camera has plenty of custom buttons, so I've customized that the way that I like to shoot. In terms of the handling, I love the grip of the G7. I think the G85 actually has a shallower grip, and I actually didn't like that. I really like the G7's more pronounced grip. This really lends itself to how I like to carry this camera. I sort of like to take the shoulder strap and wrap it around my wrist and sort of shoot that way. Okay, I'm making up a new category. I'm calling it street presence, and that's how people respond to your camera when they see it on the street. Now, when you take a big DSLR and sort of point it at people, they start to act differently, and that's just not something that's appealing to me. Most of the time when I was on the street, I was using just the 20mm, only occasionally changing it with the 42 for portrait situations. And I think that the G7 with the 20mm is just the perfect size. For street shots, I did find that the 20mm was a little bit too slow sometimes. I missed some pictures because of the slow focus. But keep in mind, these are for street shots where you might see a scene, you only have a second or two to really turn on your camera, point and compose, and then shoot. I know that if I used the kit lens in that situation, it would have been able to take those shots even quicker. Now, something that I like to do when I'm not using G7 is to flip the screen so that the plastic side is on the back. And this actually slows me down quite a lot. When I see something on the street that I want to take, I have to flip it out and sort of flip it back in, because I don't like to shoot with the flip screen outside. I like to shoot video that way. I don't like shooting stills that way. I don't know why. It's just impulse. I don't know. Now, let's get into some sample pictures. I don't ever foresee myself ever leaving the micro four thirds system if it can take stills in this way. Even in low light situations, it was performing really decently. Now, starting us off on a couple of pictures that were edited on darkroom. You can see here the shallow depth of field that I'm able to get on the 42.5. Now that is just insane. If you just look at the bokeh behind the subject and in front of the subject, it's nice and creamy. It's not distracting at all. This next black and white shot, I just happened to be walking by. It was just one of those situations where something happened on the street. It looked really good, took the picture, and everything just sort of worked perfectly. I absolutely love this picture. Edited this on darkroom as well. Now, moving on to this portrait in a crowded street in Brussels, you can see how isolated the subject is and how creamy that background is. Now, moving on to a couple of pictures in Greece, just the level of sharpness that you can get out of a sensor that is much smaller than a full frame sensor is just astounding to me. And again, at the Acropolis during sunset, this one is unedited, but I'm pretty sure I can edit this picture to make it look like an ad. Now, here's a low light setting at the actual wedding itself. I just love how creamy the bokeh is on this shot. Now, lastly, a picture of the bride and groom as people were throwing rice at them. For this one, I just put the camera on burst mode and put it on continuous focus and just wanted to see what this camera can actually pull off. In the end, I was blown away by the image quality. I mean, look at the level of detail that you're getting and the sharpness. It definitely exceeded my expectations as a camera. Okay, so summing up, will this replace a full frame camera or a top of the line APS-C camera? Probably not, but it does give the competition a run for its money. So the moral of this video, if there is one, is that the G7 is a pretty darn good stills camera. If you bought it just for the video prowess, you should probably look into its stills capability as well. Videography and photography are related. If you're into one, you should probably dabble into the other, and that will greatly improve your craft. This is Kim, and I'll see you guys next week.